like you just did then, but just do like a briefer intro of, what you're doing, all that. Yeah.
Okay, what I'm doing. We didn't talk about that. But all right, go ahead. Right?
Yeah, why am I talking to you? Who are you? And
you tell me. Go for it.
À-bas-le-ciel.
So who's heard of this Eisel Mazard guy?
Eisel Mazard.
Fuck Eisel Mazard. I don't know who the motherfucker is.
I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Eisel Mazard.
Cool. But my first name is Isel. I have a different nickname in every country I've lived in. So in China, my nickname in Chinese that you may have seen on my website, www.eisel-mazard.com, is the Big Shadow, literally. It's their way of translating the long shadow.
You're 6'3",
so
yeah.
I am tall, but it's a funny nickname because it has more than one double entendre attached to it. I did 2 job interviews in the same day like this via Skype, probably wearing the same suit jacket. And I remember one of the Chinese people said to me, "That's a stupid nickname. Why did you choose that nickname in Chinese?" And the other job interview the same day was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good nickname. Oh, interesting." So yeah. Do you have a Hebrew name yet, or no? You just use no.
No, I think they tried to. I think my name sounds like a car or a car horn or something like that. I don't know.
How long have you lived in Thailand in total? Do you have a Thai nickname or a Thai
I
identity?
didn't live in Thailand very long. It was sort of 3 months straight, but I've been backwards and forwards about a year and a half.
Okay, well, that's funny because you see how it is with YouTube and social media. I associate you with Thailand, but I don't really know. It's just the way it is. Like, you see videos and you think of somebody as attached to Thailand, but I don't really know how you think of Thailand or what importance it's had in your life, if any. You have a brother living in Vietnam, I take it, or no?
Yeah. My brother's living over there. He's been there for nearly 3 years. Yeah. He's going back to Australia soon to get married, and I don't know what he'll do after that.
Yeah. Well, for me, politically and linguistically, I had nothing to do with Vietnam. I was really involved with Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and then to a lesser extent, Myanmar, Sri Lanka. That was the part of the world I lived in. And in terms of Buddhism, all the countries I just mentioned are part of the Theravada Buddhist world. So it's a different religion and a different written tradition, different historical and cultural tradition. And Vietnam is part of the Mahayana Buddhist world. So they are 2 different forms of Buddhism. So I first lived in Hong Kong, then in Taiwan. So this is after I finished university. I'd visited some places before that.
This is early 2000s, yeah?
Yeah, I guess 2002, 2003. So starting back then. And I had this long period where I never went back to Canada. And then, so it started with Hong Kong, Taiwan, and then Thailand. And it was at that point that I broke away from working in museums. I had a series of jobs in museums that let me save up a little bit of money. And while I mentioned this to you, while I was in Thailand, that was a golden period for travel because there was a corruption case against the Thai Airways, the Thai airplane company. So for a brief period, due to wonderful corruption, the flights were really, really cheap within Thailand. So the full-time job kept me very busy, but I would have 2 days off work, and I would actually buy an airplane ticket and go to somewhere like Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, some obscure town in the northeast. So when I had that job in Bangkok, I actually was exploring the north. I think I made one really brief trip also to Vientiane, the capital city of Laos. And then I thought, okay, my job which was inside Thaksin Shinawatра's government. That's the former prime minister of Thailand. A very fraught time, both emotionally and intellectually, to be involved in Thai politics. I met the guy who was basically the number 2. I did meet the vice president of Thailand at that time, but I also met, I'm sorry, now I forget, is it vice president or vice prime minister? I forget the title. Anyway, but when I got there, Thaksin Shinawatra, soon after he came into office, he had actually massacred over 2,000 people. In what was justified as a war on drugs. Very interesting episode in history. The total body count was later raised to over 3,000, and they did it in the old-fashioned way of having a series of government meetings, making up lists of who to be killed, and killing people with no trials and no investigation and so on. So it was interesting. The Thaksin government, in some ways, it was a period of hope for democracy. And in some ways, because he did that the minute after he came into office, he carried out this massacre that never really got properly investigated or handled. It blackened democracy. It discredited democracy. And then we had a series of things where he shut down radio stations that criticized him and that sort of thing. And then finally the coup d'etat. So I just mentioned, I was relatively briefly in Bangkok working in the museum service for that government. and getting better informed what was really going on in Thailand. But already at that time, what I really wanted to do was humanitarian work in the more poverty-stricken areas. So I was looking at the border with Myanmar, refugee camps, looking at the border with Cambodia, border with Laos. I really considered going the Myanmar route, but I ended up going to Laos. But anyway, finally, when the Thaksin government fell, I was in Laos and working for the Lao government, and I got to see their reactions. So today, I just mentioned as an example, there's a great website for a foundation called Freedom House. And Freedom House gives a very rough and ready measurement of what is and what is not a democracy, which is quite useful. I think it's on a 5-point scale or 6-point scale. I forget now. But, it's just, it's like, do they have elections or not? Is it possible for newspapers to criticize the government or not? Like, there's just a couple of simple points. But the sad fact is that during my lifetime, all of Southeast Asia has gotten less and less democratic, including Thailand itself, which is now a military dictatorship. And it used to be a democracy, even though it was a democracy with profound problems.
That was only recent, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was
recently that they went to
military
dictatorship.
Yeah. It's happened repeatedly during my lifetime, and I'm not that old.
Yeah.
So yeah, that whole region.
Better than Durianrider.
Yeah, I don't know how old is he? Do you know? Anyway.
I think he said 38 or 39.
Oh right, yeah. He did mention that. Right. Yeah. I think it's 39. But anyway, yeah. So Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. There was hope for democracy when I first got there. And today, sadly, I think you could say there is no hope. So that stuff, again, I think anyone who's interested in the region should be sensitive if you want to be more than a tourist.
All right, so I'll just do a quick joke. All right, g'day guys. Welcome back to my channel. You're watching me here, Jason Pizzino, and I'm joined with... Go for it.
Eisel Mazard. First name Eisel, last name Mazard.
I got you to say that because I don't...
Oh, yeah.
Your name correctly.
Pronounce...
What's your channel name?
À-bas-le-ciel.
Don't worry, I'll link it down below, guys, so go and check that out.
Pardon my French, à-bas-le-ciel. Hey, I got a story back from the Thai Fruit Festival, from the last one, where they told me that someone sent me fan mail saying that there were a group of people sitting around talking about my videos, the videos that were out at that time, and they were excited about them. They said, yeah, you've got to check out this channel, à-bas-le-ciel. And the girl came away, she wrote it down A-B-B-A-S, like she thought it was an Arabic name, like Abbas. It's a mistake anyone could make, so,
So I'm talking to you because...
you tell me, I don't know. Nice hearing from you, Jason.
So I've been watching a lot of Eisel's videos on YouTube lately, and he makes some really good points to do with veganism, with politics, with, just the world in general, and how, like, you can see the veganism community shifting in certain ways, and what we can do to improve the community, actually get some good action taken, and just to see things improve in a more positive way. So I was really inspired by a lot of your videos, stuff that you've talked about. I'll link it down below, guys, as I said before, and you can check out videos he's done on other people here in the community, and topics of politics and stuff.
It's nice to hear that from you. I just say I don't take it for granted. It reflects well on your character that you're capable of seeing my channel and responding to it positively, or seeing it as constructive criticism or inspirational, or whatever you want to say. Well, no, plenty of people just respond and say, "Who the hell is this guy think he is?" Yeah. So it says something about you.
And for your background, you've been going through universities, as we were just chatting briefly before. You've gone through out of high school into a lot of universities, and I guess you've got the experience as to what you've studied. It's like politics and languages and wars and conflicts, and then into veganism as well, Buddhism.
Yeah, I think the reality is I would have become vegan anyway without any of that other stuff. So, I can't say it's strictly related, but yeah, my first university diploma is in political science. When I finished that diploma, a lot of what I had to do involved the Buddhist world, specifically the Theravada Buddhist world in Southeast Asia. But I always did modern politics as well as ancient history, and that made me unique. So when I talk to other people about Buddhism, people with PhDs, people with an academic background, they often had a very rose-colored glasses view of Buddhism. And my idea of Buddhism included slavery, included wars both ancient and modern, included torture. Questions about the ethics of torture are quite interesting in Buddhism. People have forgotten about it now, but after September 11th, back in 2001, there was also a lot of debate about torture, in Western politics, like the Americans using torture and so on. But, to me, all that stuff was interesting too. So I was very unusual in being kind of a political realist, interested in both ancient history and modern history. Something we talked about before. before, I was also somebody who was always motivated by a combination of humanitarian work, humanitarian interests, and research. So I took all this together with my useless bachelor's degree in political science, can't get you a job, and came to Southeast Asia. And then since then, I've been back to university a couple of times. My current university degree is in Asian Studies. And if you follow my channel, you'll get to see what happens next in my fascinating life. So, anything could happen from here.
From Canada to China to, where next? Israel, maybe?
Right, Israel. And, I think I mentioned in my other video, I applied for a great job in Poland. Did you catch that?
No, there's many videos I haven't gone through.
Well, I don't know. A charming town called Auschwitz. Have you heard of it or no?
Auschwitz?
Yeah. Anyway, don't worry. We'll skip over for now. But anyway, it's cool.
Okay.
So, what happens next in my boring life? You get to find it on my YouTube channel.
Boring life, which we will, fully delve into and take some of that knowledge from.
All right, whatever you want to talk about, man. Cool.
So with all that, what picked me up from your channel and what I started watching is, like the constant drama that keeps circulating through the vegan community, and I guess I wanted to get your views on it, from your experience having studied politics and how you see these things going, and especially because you got a bit of interest in dictatorships and learning how those things work, especially with the current situation in Thailand where it's gone into a military dictatorship, as you're saying.
Yeah. Look, I mean, a video I already made in the recent past had the title of Drama but Not Meaningless Drama. And I think that's a really important point to make. So when you're talking about this issue of drama, of infighting within veganism, I think there is a really deep difference between people who are disputing real issues that they really care about and people creating conflict either because they think it will make them money, make them popular, bring them more views, or for some other reason. Sometimes, two guys have slept with the same woman and there's jealousy. Like, they're fighting for a real reason, but it's meaningless for the outside public. Those things happen. They can happen in high school. They can happen on YouTube. They can happen on social media. So I'm not saying this with like a lack of sympathy for the human heart and the type of drama people get into. But in that earlier video, I pointed out, I do really believe in debate being like a knife sharpening a knife. Both parties, kind of become sharper. We sharpen our own minds. We tend to define the terms we use more precisely and more clearly. Like both sides, whether or not they say it, we'll think, oh, gee, I hadn't thought about it that way before. Even if I'm disagreeing with you, part of the process is I figure out precisely in what way I disagree with you, and I'm challenged to explain why I disagree with you. So that's really a crucially important thing in politics of any kind and in any scale. From the smallest scale of like 5 people trying to organize a vegan magazine or a vegan charity up to, a whole nation. I can give you a really surreal example. During the Cambodian Civil War, the British government actually supported the communist side, including under Margaret Thatcher, who was anti-communist. She supported the Khmer Rouge. And you can get this out of the Hansard is the official name for the record of parliamentary debates. And there's some surreal quotes from Margaret Thatcher herself, where Margaret Thatcher was asked about this. Like, why are we supporting that side? And she says things so British. Well, people say that Pol Pot is a bad guy and they killed a lot of people. But, I feel that some people in the Khmer Rouge are perfectly reasonable and we can support them. It's this kind of thing. It's like, okay, what does debate do when it's meaningful? It draws someone out like that and says, look, I want you to justify why you believe what you believe, what we should do now in the future, or why things happen in the past. That is really positive. So there's a sense in which I'm pro-drama, and I give examples of that on my channel all the time. And I think that, the types of debates we can get into are not always meaningless and shouldn't be regarded negatively. And some people basically attack my channel by saying, why would you critique other vegans at all instead of just critiquing meat eaters? So to me, that's a really self-defeating point of view. And, when we don't do that, then we're not going to question, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And we're not going to evolve. We're not going to progress. We're not going to plan for the future. And a lot of the conversations I have with vegans, in terms of, I should clarify, vegans who are online, vegans who are part of the digital generation, they're not thinking about the next 5 years. They may not be thinking about the next 3 months. Because one of the profound effects that running a blog or a YouTube channel has on you is you tend to think about your next upload. period. Like,
short scale. Like even, and then as you go to change and, your views change and you grow and, you're just trying to make things better, people don't expect things to change, just like we were discussing the other night. They expect it to be like the news and you keep repeating yourself.
Right. And I mean, that's the thing. There's a natural human tendency, obviously, to just be interested in your own well-being, your own private life, and your own day-to-day operations. But I mean, for your own future, you got to plan the next groceries you buy or whatever. But it's interesting because, I mean, something like YouTube then brings this into the political sphere in a way it never happened before. Again, so I mean, like it's really easy for vegans to criticize PETA, people for the ethical treatment of animals. We all do it. We tend to kind of heap scorn on PETA because they're not vegan enough, and they do some kind of stupid ad campaigns, and we all get to look down on them and feel superior. But I mean, you think about PETA organizing a conference, the type of long-term planning, long-term relationship building that goes into that. In a lot of ways, they're putting us to shame, or they're putting the Thai Fruit Festival and Durianrider to shame. And it's open to everybody, right? I mean, PETA has these conferences, and people sometimes say stupid things. PETA made a big deal out of trying to get non-leather seats into a luxury car. They did that with BMW and stuff. Some of their stuff, it seems kind of embarrassing. You think, yeah. And, they do this sexy... Yeah. What was that? Some of the stuff just seems embarrassing, some of the stuff they do, and they have, the sexy girls in bikinis, and some people find that offensive and some don't. But it's what you call a big tent in politics. Anyone can join. A lot of people are involved. They employ people. Do you know any vegan organization that pays, a paycheck to 100 people or 1,000 people? And they have brought about real legal changes. They have brought about changes to American national law that changed regulations on vivisection. Again, finding examples of this from veganism are rare. There has been just recently, a couple months ago, New Zealand passed some new laws on animal rights, actually. So, I mean, there's some progress. You can look around the world and find examples of this.
Yeah, and there was a few coming through in Europe and stuff like that.
Yeah. But anyway, just say... the act of organizing those people and trying to get people together who really disagree is very different from what we tend to do on social media, on YouTube, etc., which is people working in a totally isolated way and thinking in what we tend to do on social media is working in a totally isolated way and in a totally short-term way, where it's one person thinking about one blog and thinking about their next upload, or maybe thinking about the next couple weeks. Yeah, right. Well,
I'm a little guilty of it.
Right. Well, no, I might say to you, oh, hey, I know about this cool thing that's happening in Taiwan. Why don't you go there and film it and put it in your blog? Like, that's not evil. It's just a natural way, and then maybe you're thinking just about the next 3 weeks. But what's happening in the next 5 years? What's happening in the next 10 years? Where are any of us? What, those are the kind of questions I ask on my channel.
Yeah. So, if we're talking about Durianrider and Freelee and the Thai Fruit Festival, and I guess what we're talking about is just gone more segregated, and we're not sort of planning for 5 years ahead. Also looking at Henya and Mai and our channels and stuff like that, where things, all of us, as you're saying, all of us have said stuff in the past, and any of that can be mishmashed into a latest video to try and take down the next person, but. Like you're saying, it's like a really short-term view to be looking at things like that and not expecting people to change and evolve and grow.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, I guess. Like, what are we supposed to do? Is it looking at change? Are we supposed to stay the same? Is there any?
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things to ask. I'm trying not to make every video on my channel about Freelee and Durianrider, but I mean, what is it that's so threatening to Freelee about Henya and what happened with her? I think, in a sense, you're mentioning this issue of change. Well, Henya used to endorse the raw till 4 diet, and she changed based on experience. Now, Freelee has seen this before with, for example, Unnatural Vegan and others, right? She's had a series of younger women. I forget, there's no point listing off all the names, but quite a few younger women tried the diet, believed in it for some period of time, and then hit a breaking point and said, to one extent or another, this is misleading, this is bullshit, this doesn't work, or some of the claims are false. So I would guess that for Freelee, it's shocking to have Henya added to that list. Now, Freelee responds to that as if it's a betrayal. to me, that's already inherently ridiculous. Like, and Henya's been very clear about why she said what she said and what her, what her mandate is, basically. But I mean, for Freelee also, her competition in a sense is every younger, good-looking woman on Instagram who eats meat. And that's the reality of the world we live in. If you're basing your claims for veganism on, as Freelee does, that this is the only way to be slim, this is the only way to have a tight waist, which is what Freelee argues. And that's why she attacks anyone who loses weight with any other method. If you lose weight with any other method, then you must be anorexic, you must be water fasting, you must be binging or purging or whatever. She makes these really damning accusations against anyone else who loses weight with any other method because she believes, and she wants others to believe, that her method is the only method. And the reality is, it's not just Henya who's a threat to that. Any model on Instagram who eats meat is a threat to that because they're proving the opposite all the time. There are all kinds of success. I mean, this is why I say this is part of the hollowness of beauty. I mean, like, for you yourself also. So you're representing that you're healthy, you're muscular, and you're vegan. But there are a million good-looking men, whether they're bodybuilders or actors or whatever, who eat meat. So ultimately, it can never rest on that basis alone. There has to be something more to it, right?
It's true that, yeah. And I guess a lot of people also then attack the guys that look good with other things, claims of steroids or restricting calories and whatnot and all that sort of thing, which, like Raw Till 4 and those sort of diets anyway, from what the doctors have said, I know we're probably getting into a little bit of a difficult sort of territory, is it is a restricted in some sense, plus none of it has ever been proved, and nor do any of the doctors support that, the plant-based doctors.
Yeah, so I mean, there are two interesting issues there. One is the psychology of someone like Freelee or Durianrider attacking anyone who looks good as being on steroids or being secretly bulimic or whatever, like making these kinds of accusations. Well, Durianrider now claims that he's a former anorexic. I really do not...
When did that happen?
Oh, yeah, it's on his channel. Actually, I quote him in one of my videos where I have, clips from him in my comments. So, no, you can see that.
I mean, I've clinically been diagnosed with anorexia and I've clinically recovered from it, so I can speak with personal experience.
No, well, but your reaction is telling, because it's like, well, why didn't you mention that earlier? It is a little bit weird. It's like, well, you've talked about anorexia a lot, and you never formally mentioned that you were diagnosed with anorexia, and he claims he was later discharged, he was pronounced cured of his anorexia. So, yeah, it's a bit spooky. But if we take him at his word that he really is an ex-anorexic, that he's a recovered former anorexic, he can...
one of these videos or something like that.
Yeah, it's in his own... I'm quoting him. I mean, it's not some rumor someone else started. He proclaimed this. But if that's true, then again, it looks really like part of the anorexic mentality, where it's like, I'm pretty, you're not pretty. If you are pretty, then I'm going to take you down and denounce you by saying that you're really on steroids. This kind of really childish mentality that is typical of this kind of anorexic mindset. Now, anyway, Durianrider also claims he has other unspecified mental illnesses that, resulted in him being given government benefits. So it's hard to draw too many conclusions from that. That's one side of it. Look, on the science side, which is the second thing you happen to mention, there is not now and never has been any debate about the fact that if you eat more calories than you burn, you'll gain weight, you gain body fat. With a very small threshold. You can eat a little bit too much without gaining body fat. There is a threshold, like most things in biology. You can overdo it just a little bit, but if you do any more, then you gain body fat. And, Durianrider and Freelee have used every trick in the book to try to distract you from this and try to guilt trip you if you question their logic, to make you feel guilty that you have a starvation mentality, that you have an anorexic mindset. If you dare to believe that eating fewer calories will help you to lose weight and so on. And, meanwhile, the entire medical establishment, the entire history of science in the Western world confirms the opposite, calories in versus calories out. And
which is interesting.
Right. Yeah, well, no, I was also going to say the actual bodybuilders who are kind of friends with Freelee and Durianrider, who don't criticize them, still, if you compare their actual diet and actual diet advice to Freelee and Durianrider, it's totally incompatible. That includes guys like Abdullah at the Glucose Network. if you look at the reality of what he says, he's considered an ally or a friend of Freelee and Durianrider, but the actual content of what he says about nutrition is hostile to them. It contradicts what they say. He's using calories in, calories out model.
Yeah, yeah.
And he also says, I remember one of his telling things about psychology, he just said, fat people lie how much they eat, suggesting they eat less than they do, and skinny people lie about how much they eat, saying they eat more than they do. Like, as a general pattern. We all know that from Western culture. The slim woman who says, oh, I eat like a horse, or the fat person who says, I eat nothing. So, you put the pieces together. Look, so you mentioned a bunch of other interesting things. This issue of just staying on message as opposed to growing and evolving. YouTube,
which they are,
right?
They are growing. So I'll say that again. They are growing and evolving, but they're not making it public, or not that I've seen anyway. So correct me.
Yeah.
Like the diet originally started at 3,000 calories, and it went down to 2,500 calories, and I think it's down to 2,100 calories now. Like, it's a 30% drop.
Yeah, it's huge, and yet they still use the number 3,000 verbally. And the other thing about that, whenever you're looking at the numbers, whether it's the 95.5 number or the 3,000 calorie number, what is that based on? It's not based on experimental evidence. It's not based on a cohort study. Like,
that's a good video you did about that.
No, but I mean, those kinds of numbers, like 3,000 calories, 5,000 calories, if you look at the long-distance cyclists, like in the training for the Tour de France, they do eat those kind of numbers. And of course they don't gain weight because they're riding they're doing intensive hundreds of kilometers of cycling. So I really wonder if it just reflects Durianrider's background with, endurance athletics, that he took the number 3,000. But
it reflects his background with endurance athletics.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're just taking numbers out of thin air, if the diet did work, it would just be a coincidence. Because this is not based on research. It's not based on anything. It's not even really based on anecdotal experience. Like the type of anecdotal experience you have if you've been a counselor working with people, in a rehabilitation program or something, or sports medicine, helping people recover, you might have anecdotal experience. Like if you just stayed long-term with about 20 patients, you say, okay, this is what I see working, this is not. You can come up with guidelines, but they don't even have that. It is really just made up out of thin air. So, and if the diet works for you, it's a miracle, and I'm happy, and you're probably an endurance athlete, because that's what the diet's designed for. So, hey.
Yeah. Look, there's going to be so many people that are going to see this and just have to dispute it at some point because of what we were saying, the brainwash mentality. I haven't said that really politely, but, if you don't agree with them, that's it,
Yeah. Well, again, I question that. In any political organization, that would be a disaster. But, let's say I have a reason why I really believe you shouldn't eat hummus. Maybe it's scientific, maybe it's anecdotal, maybe it's based on my own experience. Why wouldn't I just come on YouTube and explain what the reason is? Why would I accuse you of having a case of cuntinitis, of being an ungrateful cunt, of why would I treat you? Why would I politically persecute you the way they've persecuted Henya? Just what is the point? Either you have a real reason to be against eating hummus, or you don't. If you do, okay, let's hear it, and maybe it's interesting, and we can all move on in our lives. But instead, it is this kind of irrational, hyperconformist persecution complex. Somehow you're persecuting her if you want to eat beans or you have any criticism of technicalities of the diet itself.
Yeah, look, I think that also goes a lot deeper, on their defense, that they're claiming that, it worked at some point and now they're saying it doesn't work, and, Henya's saying one thing, that it was, the videos of the old times that she was doing, more high carb, but over time it didn't really work long term. It works in the beginning, but eventually things start to change and you realize that just your regular vegan diet, just your vegan diet is what it's about.
Well, right.
And sort of hit her up in that sense.
Well, right, there are two aspects to that. So one is identical to unnatural vegan, which is just, in the past you believed in the diet and now you don't. That's simple. You learning experience, but unnatural vegan went through that and other people did. But the second is of Henya being interested in this in terms of converting others to veganism. So that's also the second is Henya being interested in converting others to veganism and how it fits into the social reality of having a job or raising kids or being a normal person, and of saying no. I like, this is basically summarizing what Henya said, of saying no, I don't want to present veganism as something that's only for elite athletes or something that requires stocking up on organic fruit and all this other stuff. I want to present veganism as an attainable goal for mediocre, middle-class, middle-aged people, right? Whether that's eating hummus or eating French fries. And French fries are not great for your health, but so what? It's vegan. I've pointed out much, cocaine is not good for your health, but it is vegan. I'm not encouraging you to use cocaine, but like the reality of how broad veganism is, as opposed to trying to make this kind of tighter and tighter thing. But I mean, one of the disadvantages of YouTube is that most of the leadership roles have gone to people who happen to be good looking and happen to have a certain kind of personality. I've said before on this channel, normally it's the stand-up comedian personality. It's someone who wants fame, who wants attention, and who's also a little bit vulnerable, where if they don't get that attention, they're going to really respond or lash out. So it's certain types of people who've come on camera. And now again, it's a credit to him. Like, I'm now friends with Vegan Cheetah, but I said that at one point as a criticism of him, where I was saying, look, this is the kind of guy who comes on YouTube and gets famous through social media. He's gorgeous. He's a bodybuilder. He looks great, and you could feel it across the camera that he wants to be an entertainer.
I gotta check this guy out now.
Oh, you don't know? Okay. But anyway, that was really his MO back in those days. He wants your attention. He does a lot of live streaming now. And if he doesn't get it, he gets hurt and upset. You see that reaction too. A lot of stand-up comics are like that. A lot of people in entertainment. But I think a lot of people they had hopes for the Thai Fruit Festival to be something it never could be. And
they had hopes for the Thai Fruit Fest.
They had hopes for the Thai Fruit Festival to be something that it never could be. And today, I mean, I feel like it's now going into the past tense. Well, they've already renamed it the Thai Bike Festival and kicked everyone out and tried to make it a much more narrow event, which was really, really making explicit something that formerly was implicit, that you aren't wanted there if you aren't exactly their kind of person and aren't devoted follower of all their teachings. But again, compare that to People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. It's so easy to heap scorn on PETA and say PETA is no good and whatever. Well, 5 years from now, who's still going to be standing? What's really going to be important, and what's happening in the vegan community, or what will have any hope for veganism? And again, like here in Canada, I despise the Green Party. I heap scorn on the Green Party. The Green Party is not vegan at all. The Green Party wants to give more money to the dairy industry. They want to support the rape and murder of cows and all this crap. But it could change in the next 5 years. And if you go to the Green Party, you don't have to own a bicycle and be on Strava. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be beautiful. You don't have to be thin. You don't have to subscribe to a ridiculous theory about how many calories you should eat to lose weight. So there's at least some hope, or there's some potential there. As I say, when I look at what those guys have done, I see absolutely no hope and absolutely no potential. And one of the good things about YouTube is that people feel my sincerity in saying that. I'm not saying that to just be provocative. That's really the conclusion I've come to.
It's not that that's the way we want it to go, because it's about abundance and giving people options as to how they want to pursue veganism. It's not that we want the thing to go down. Like, I know a lot of people are out there wanting, Freelee and Harley to fail, and they want, bikes just to disappear, but that's not what it's about.
So, look, I don't disagree with you. I'm going to go a step further. There is such an irony here, because I have so much in common with the people who hate me in Chiang Mai. I did long-distance cycling. I used to do more than 100 kilometers a day in Thailand.
I only did it for a short period of time. You didn't do it for long enough.
No, but it's not the meaning of life for me, but I have that experience. I rode my bike from Vientiane to Chiang Mai one time.
Vientiane?
Vientiane is the capital city of Laos. So that was going west through the mountains. I don't remember, but going along the Mekong River, really curvy route and up and down hills, beautiful. Very memorable, very hard trip. Anyway, but I just say, sorry, I've done long-distance cycling. I've lived in that part of Asia. I've lived in Thailand. And even I really have considered opening a small hotel at several points. But I'm still, like, in the future, it's possible to do that. It's possible I will live a life fundamentally.
Don't take any advice from Joe Best.
What?
Open up a small hotel.
No, but that's what I was going to say. I'm not so different from Joe Best. You know, in the near future, I could be living in a situation not so different from Joe Best. In a lot of ways, fundamentally, I should be an ally of these people. We're natural friends, not natural enemies. We all want to support veganism and the abolition of animal agriculture of some kind. You know, there's so much common ground there. And yet you see this hostility and infighting. And, you know, again, like, there's always a question. I'm not opposed to compromise, but what would any of us get from compromise? Henya, the reason why the example of Henya is so significant is that Henya...
What would any of us get from compromise?
Yeah, from like compromise with Freelee or Durianrider. I think the significance of Henya's experience, the reason why so many people react to what happened to Henya, is that Henya shows that it's useless to compromise. No matter how flattering you are or how polite you are, what happened to Henya will happen to you. Now, we already saw it happen to a whole bunch of other people. But, I mean, I just say the example of Henya is telling. So that no compromise is possible. You know. But I don't want them to fail. Sure, like dial back to 2013 or something. I would have absolutely, nothing could be better for me than if there was a cosmopolitan vegan movement based in Chiang Mai, Thailand. That would be incredibly convenient for me. If I'm gonna move back to Kunming now, which is my plan, I could easily visit and participate and be part of the Chiang Mai scene. It'd be great for me. So anyway, of anyone in the world, I speak the language there. I don't know if ask yourself, does anyone in the Chiang Mai scene actually speak Thai?
So
Does anyone in the Chiang Mai scene actually speak Thai? I don't know if even
anyone that actually speaks it.
Yeah, I don't know of even one example, but I do. So I mean, for me, sure, I could have, in theory, opened a hotel like Joe Best. I could have gotten involved in this heavily, and in theory, I still could if it wasn't, self-destructing already. Sure, this could have been something really positive in my life personally, and I could have contributed to what they're trying to do. In theory, having a guy like me around who speaks Thai and wants to help, maybe I could help more than Joe Best. Maybe not. I mean, but I'm just saying, this is just to illustrate, like, there is no inevitable hostility here. Not, there's no force of nature that separates us and makes us enemies. And again, Henya proves it. Why, I think Henya would be fine. If I came on and made a video about why I think you shouldn't eat hummus, like, this is the effect hummus has had in my life. There's Henya in the background like a ghost. We were just talking about hummus.
We're just talking about hummus. Yes.
So here's a bit more healthy option for you.
Thank you. I've got orange juice, a huge glass of orange juice.
Cool.
Mandarin juice.
No, I don't. I think it's secretly coffee.
Yeah, I would. Here we go. I can show you. There we go.
Point proven.
That's what I do in my videos. I say I'm drinking coffee, but it's just to prove a point. But, probably like Durianrider. He says he takes steroids, but he's probably not taking real steroids.
But my point is, if I came on and made a video, for some reason I think you shouldn't eat hummus, Henya wouldn't turn around and attack me. Like, everybody should might think, oh, that's weird, that's interesting. What?
I mean, I make videos saying why you shouldn't eat hummus. Like, it's not life.
Anyway, man, what can I tell you? History is full of these kinds of sad ironies. Why does one person end up in charge of a movement at a certain period of time? In some ways, we all know the answer, and in some ways, we all got to move on.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess like we were just saying as well, the differences between that side of things and the hummus side of things, especially in Henya and Freelee and Durianrider case, was like, they felt like it went a bit deeper, like it was and people are out there just to make money and that sort of thing out of life. I guess not considering what they've, where they've come from and what they continue to promote in regards to making money, what they do on their channels, how to eat, how their diets have changed without actually, specifically mentioning that to people.
Well, right, but I mean that is complete bullshit. I mean, but you have been accused of being only motivated by money, of being corporate. What corporation do you represent? Do you think Joe Best isn't trying to make money? I don't blame him. He's running a small hotel. Like I don't think that's evil. But also let's be clear. What I did in Southeast Asia was charity. Okay, when I was handing out sacks of rice to starving people, that's charity. That I'm not doing for money. Joe Best running a small hotel is not a charity. It's a business, and that's fine. But only the enemies of Freelee and Durianrider are said to be motivated by money, and their friends are not. So I don't know. You tell me. Sean Lee is about as corporate as it gets, but he's not accused of this. You are, right? So, I mean, anyone they turn against, they say is motivated by money and is corporate, and it has no gratitude. And
isn't a real vegan and is anti-vegan, and
it's a familiar act by now because they've done it to so many people.
Why are so many people still being fooled by it?
Okay, you know, I keep it real. My honest answer is, stupidity.
Politically incorrect one. You keep it real.
Stupidity is real, man. I mean, stupidity is real. The number one question I get asked is, why don't I want to have an open comment section on my channel? What percentage of comments on these videos, would you honestly say are stupid? Now, it's not even mean to say this stuff is stupid, because when you acknowledge that it's stupid, you're acknowledging that there aren't, evil intentions there. These people aren't really scheming to destroy anyone. But yeah, I mean, stupidity is real. Stupidity is a powerful force on Earth, like gravity, that keeps the Earth turning around the sun. Why do people believe this crap? Because they're stupid, because they're on an ego trip, because they want to believe. And that's an ugly side of human nature that sooner or later, as we all grow up, you get to know pretty well. Well, sorry, say one more thing about that. Like, people ask me why I don't have an open comment section and so on. I don't respect everyone's opinion. Like, let's stop pretending. If I talk to you, Jason, and I say I do respect your opinion, almost by definition, that means there's someone else's opinion I don't respect. So that's also a strange part of the internet game, is like pretending we respect everyone's opinion, pretending everyone is equal, when the inequalities are really stark. To bring this back to you guys in a weird way, like I made that video talking about Israel. You may or may not have seen it. And this other vegan YouTuber who made comments on Israel. And one of the fundamental things I just said was, look, like, how many years have you spent studying the Israel-Palestine conflict? Or how many months or how many weeks? Because coming on YouTube and speaking out of complete ignorance, we're not all equal. And I said to myself, I could have chosen to become an expert in the Israel-Palestine conflict, and I didn't. I chose to study Cambodia and Laos and some other stuff. I chose to take another route. So I have to have the humility to recognize my own ignorance, right? So ignorance is also a form of inequality, right? And, I mean, with all this stuff, I am not an expert on Crohn's disease. The guy who emailed me about that, the medical student, he knows a lot more than I do, I think. A lot of people do. But I ended up being the guy to make that statement. So,
The statement about Crohn's, what was that?
Yeah, about Durianrider saying that he has Crohn's disease. And the implications that has.
He says he has.
Does he?
Medically diagnosed?
He says that sometimes. Okay. He gave an interview with the Rich Roll podcast. I had a fan write in to warn me about that. I think it's between the 15-minute mark and the 17-minute mark, if anyone wants to check, with Durianrider's interview with Rich Roll. Yeah, you cut out for just a second there. Anyway, 15-minute mark to 17-minute mark. In that, Durianrider says he never was medically diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Now, from my perspective, that's about as shocking and disturbing as claiming you have HIV/AIDS and then later revealing that you don't. But it's more shocking when you consider in the old days of their act, Freelee and Durianrider were supporting the idea of being healed through your diet. And of claiming not only that he had Crohn's disease, that he was diagnosed with it, but that he was cured. So now we're into the same level of scam as like a faith healer. The number one way to have a miracle healing for someone with cancer is to get a fake diagnosis in the first place. If I get you falsely diagnosed with cancer, and then I perform a magical ritual or I pray to God or whatever, and then we go and do a scan and you don't have cancer, the easiest way to do that is to fake it at step one, is to falsely diagnose you with cancer in the first place. So yeah, if you falsely claim you had a disease you never had, now you're cured, that's a scam of another kind.
So there you go, if you falsely...
Yeah, if you falsely claim to have a disease that you never had, and then afterwards you claim you're cured, then that's a scam of another kind. But I mean, look, these are the people who've been in this leadership role in veganism. I mean...
Speaking of that, with diseases and stuff like that, like, when I was recalling that, the reason why I didn't, sort of pick up on it, or I didn't want to mention it too much more, is because it was usually related to veganism. They've got these diseases and they had these obesities and they had these mental issues, but now the vegan diet has cured them. So I guess a lot of us, me as well,
right,
we just put that on the back burner and just say, that's fine. If people want to make that up and say veganism cured it, great. It's a great promotional tool to get people to come over onto a vegan diet.
Okay, so that raises another really interesting point for me. Another vegan YouTuber who I would consider famous wrote to me asking the question. I won't say who it was, but another vegan YouTuber wrote to me basically saying, well, even if this stuff is not true, shouldn't we kind of support it because it promotes veganism? Now, a lot of people believe that, whether it's about the healings of, magical healing of diseases, or if it's about the psychological aspects, or if it's about weight loss claims that we all know are impossible. Lose weight while eating 3,000 calories and getting zero exercise. Zero exercise with 3,000 calories. Sitting on the couch. You're going to gain weight pretty fast. Anyway, the laws of physics are going to catch up with you. So he was asking the same question you were alluding to of shouldn't we support it anyway because it spreads veganism. I would parallel this to things I've said about Buddhism on my YouTube channel already. No, I do not want to be part of a religion that is based on a lie. I do not think there's any moral justification for basing your religion or accepting donations, because almost all religions are based on donations these days, including Buddhism, on the basis of lying to people, of saying I'm going to do something I'm not going to do, or I'm going to give you a magical amulet that's supposed to have effects it's not really going to have. To me, there is almost no justification for that. We can come up with a desert island situation, but no, I don't want to be part of a religion based on a lie. I don't want to be part of a political movement based on a lie. I don't want to be part of a diet based on selling people a lie. No problem. So, no, that's a profound, important ethical difference. And we all claim we're better than the meat industry, right? We all claim we're better than the lies by the egg industry or the dairy industry telling you that most... Well, are we better? Live up to it. Prove it, right? It means telling the truth, even when the truth is inconvenient. Here's an inconvenient truth. Getting enough calcium on a vegan diet is not easy. Really do the math for how much broccoli you have to eat to get enough calcium. It's a damn lot of broccoli.
That's why they say eat so much fruit.
Well, anyway, if you're eating fruit that contains calcium or what have you, it's possible. I'm just saying many people will not have a diet that really provides them with enough calcium. Of course, you can take a pill to catch up, but it is possible you have a vegan diet. Right. Well, selenium's a great example. But selenium is not easy to get enough of unless you plan ahead, unless you eat Brazil nuts or other specific foods. So why lie to people? If you tell people you don't need to worry about any nutritional deficiencies as long as you're eating a whole foods plant-based vegan diet. That's quoting Freelee verbatim. She said that 1,000 times. Well, it's not true. So do you want to be better than the dairy industry or not? Do you want to be better than an industry that says eggs and bacon are part of a complete breakfast or not? Or do you want to lie and say your lies are justified by promoting veganism? I don't want to be part of a religion that's about living a lie or selling a lie or promoting a lie. So that's I'd say that's a point of principle. I had to uncover myself a long time ago.
Fair enough.
Using Buddhism example, you could also use communism or some other political example instead of a religious example.
We can go very much deep into all those political examples and some other video, but. I think thanks so much for that, man. Like, it's given us heaps to talk about, lots to think about. I'm sure we'll do some more videos coming up really soon, if that's cool with you. Cool,
great. It's great talking to you. As I say, I'm delighted to hear that you guys are inspired, but I think, the fundamental thing is, for everyone who's crestfallen and disappointed with Durianrider and Freelee, we have an old-fashioned saying in English, for everyone who feels disappointed, for everyone who feels crestfallen with what's happened with Freelee and Durianrider, which includes you and Henya, we have an old-fashioned saying in English, don't chase, replace. Don't chase after them, replace them. You want something better than the Thai Fruit Festival? I do too. Make it happen. Anyone can rent a room. Anyone can start a festival. You can start it in Haifa in Israel. You could start it in Malaysia. You could start, but I mean, the potential is there. The reason why there was so much interest drawn to this meaningless festival where they didn't do anything interesting. They rode their bicycles up and down the hill. They gave their Q&A. Yeah, no.
Come together. It's just a gathering.
I know, but my point is the international interest in it, the level of interest that focused on it, reflects the fact that there's an appetite for this around the world. There are people who want this kind of festival to be a focus for hope, social change, political organization. Sure, dietary advice also. But like the fact that there are people in Germany and America and Australia all interested in this. Most of these people had never heard of Chiang Mai before. Chiang Mai is not that famous. Thailand maybe famous, not Chiang Mai. The fact that this event took on such importance on the internet in just a few years with all the and just how kind of boring the festival is, it shows that there is potential there. And I think a lot of people are interested in the positive example of what's happening in Israel, that Israel has just in the last 10 years created a vegan culture out of nothing. I think you could have a really interesting festival there, and other people seeing this around the world. Maybe you've got the potential. As I say, don't chase, replace. Whatever it is that's frustrated you or disappointed you, whatever this didn't live up to, really think about the resources it would take to do something better. I think it's literally an attainable goal for you and Henya. If we start thinking long term, we start thinking about who we can cooperate with, and
Yeah, when I say it definitely has to be like a big cooperation between many people across different countries, if that's what we want to do. Israel, Thailand, US, Australia.
Right.
To get together.
Right, but on the other hand, Joe Best in Chiang Mai managed to just reserve a bunch of rooms and make something happen. So it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take a lot of people. It doesn't take a lot of money. So it's attainable. That's what I'd say. And there really is. You can see, so many people with goodwill wanted this thing to work and wanted something positive to come out of it, despite all the problems with it year after year. And I think you see that with a lot of failed vegan initiatives. The Woodstock Fruit Festival was a disaster. It was all this goodwill. Yeah, let's not talk about it. But there is this pent-up demand, and again, that reflects the failure of other institutions, the failure of PETA, the failure of the Green Party. The failure of other institutions. People are looking around for a new outlet, for a new focus point to bring this together and make something positive happen.
All right, it's possible. Let's end on a positive note.
Yeah. Great talking to you, Jason.
Thanks so much, man. And just before you go, guys, go and check out Eisel's channel. As I said, the link is down below. He's got wicked videos.
Thanks.
Don't add him on Facebook because he will not accept.
À-bas-le-ciel.
There's no Snapchat. What's your channel name?
À-bas-le-ciel. They'll find it.
And I'll chat to you very soon.
Thanks.
Guys.
Next year in Israel.